Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weeb from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show following an extremely solid and impressive victory by the Winnipeg Jets over the Montreal Canadiens. It'll be a podcast where I have, I think, 75% of my voice back. That's good to hear. This is no word of a lie. I wasn't sure I was doing the show tonight. I've been running a crazy fever and basically haven't been out of bed since the last time you saw me on this show here. And right around the time the Winnipeg Jets kind of snapped out of it and started playing hockey in this game after a very slow start to the game, I seemed to break my fever, and all of a sudden everything felt a lot better. So good to be back. Thank you. I got a lot of well wishes from the folks out there. A lot of people were checking in with me. That is very much appreciated. Thank you so much, folks. I was always going to be okay. A little bit of a rough patch there, but good to be back and good to be talking hockey. And let's get right down to it. I take a look at this game, and I think this is a really good example of what makes the Winnipeg Jets a good team. Because if you take a look at these two teams here tonight, I would say the Jets, dominated play for longer stretches of time. I mean, they entirely owned the second period, and they kind of turned the last 5 minutes of the first in their direction. But there's certain things that the Winnipeg Jets do that make them a really good team that we've talked about on this show. One of the things I'll say is I think the Winnipeg Jets have a better understanding of almost any team in the NHL, of the realization that if you just keep doing the right thing over and over and over and over and over again, that's what leads to winning hockey games. So, that's part of the whole idea that the Jets, they don't really change their structure. They don't like if they're down in the score, they don't change their game. They kind of keep doing the same things over and over and over again. So what does that look like? Well, in the first period, when the Jets don't come out hot in this game, what they do for the most part is do what they do best. And to me, I actually think that this is the greatest strength of the Winnipeg Jets. Beyond anything, beyond having their potential Hart Trophy winning goaltender, beyond their first line leading all trios in the NHL in scoring, I think what the Winnipeg Jets do is they fall back on a structure where even when they're not playing well, they protect home base extremely well. They protect the guts of the ice. And I think you see it in that first period against the Montreal Canadiens. A lot of the pressure that the Canadiens have doesn't really result in a lot of really great scoring chances for the Montreal Canadiens. This is another night I take a look at it outside some, the Suzuki save is a really big one. Being there despite the fact he misses the net. Josh Anderson on the breakaway. The Slavkovsky play is kind of an uncharacteristic breakdown for the Winnipeg Jets where he scores his goal. But this is just another game, again, where I don't think that Connor Hellebuyck was overly challenged because the Winnipeg Jets just do not allow teams inside on them. And that is something that they do extremely well, even if they're not on top of their game. Now, if you take that and you put it in the other direction, and you take the Montreal Canadiens and the two goals that they get in this, or the two goals that they have scored against them in the second period, are both plays where they get sucked into what's happening behind the net, and the low to high play kills them. Now, again, first goal the Canadiens score, Slavkovsky, is a low to high play, ends up in the back of that. We haven't seen a lot of those on the Winnipeg Jets this year, but you can see when you do get that play and open up that play, it makes it tough for goaltenders to look behind them and then look in front of the net and be ready for that shot that's coming. That's why Slavkovsky beats Connor Hellebuyck in that situation. The Jets clean that up after that, okay? Montreal Canadiens allow that first goal, the low to high pass from Velarde to Scheifele, where the defenseman just kind of gets lost in no man's land. He's got Scheifele on the boards, and then he goes out and gets caught in no man's land, and now he's got to either stop the pass, it's all or nothing, because he's not there to take Scheifele and take away that shot. And then the same thing happens later on when Gustafsson goes in and feeds Kyle Connor. And if you notice, there's two guys wide open in the slot there for the Winnipeg Jets. Jets. Montreal Canadiens, as good as they have been up until a certain point, it seems that they've hit a jag in the schedule. 3 straight losses. They may have come down to earth after being one of the hottest teams in the league over the Christmas break and for the vast majority of January. But you could see those are mistakes the Winnipeg Jets do not make. And then beyond that, another goal where the Jets score with almost no time left on the clock, where basically all you need to do if you're the Montreal Canadiens is kill the clock for a little bit of time there. It's a lack of focus. This is one team that is like just trying to get the period over with, and another team that is like running as hard as they can right up until the bell. These are those details that I'm talking about. Do the right thing over and over again, even if you don't get that goal with a second left or 1.5 seconds left. The effort is worth it, because if you consistently pull off the effort, you get the feeling that over 60 minutes, over 5 games, over 10 games, over 82 games, you just keep consistently doing the right things over and over and over again. It's going to pay off. That one to me was the backbreaker. May have been a little bit of a different game if that hadn't happened, but this is just a focused Winnipeg Jets team running until the bell against a Montreal Canadiens team that probably shouldn't have given up the puck. I mean, with 20 seconds left in that period, the Canadiens have the puck in their own zone and take it all the way down the ice. How in that time did they, with control in the Jets zone, turn it up ice and allow the Jets to get to that situation? The Jets wouldn't do that, because their details would have them understand that whatever they do in that moment, you do not turn over the puck with that little time left on the clock and give one last chance for your opponent going the other way. The Winnipeg Jets are a smarter hockey club. They compete harder than other hockey clubs, and they are so aware of the details that even a team like the Montreal Canadiens that has been on a hot streak as of late, yes, again, I know they've lost 3 straight right now and have had a little bit of a down, but the Winnipeg Jets are a team that understands doing the right thing over and over again leads to winning hockey games. They understand it. They, on this night, for sure, understood it far better than the Montreal Canadiens did, and that's why they walk away with a victory in this game. That's my take on the game. That time to bring in the man with the best music in the business for his take on the whole thing. Here comes Kenny, folks. Kenny, the folks at home may notice I pulled out an oldie but a goodie in the Sean T-shirt here. One of the things that we were selling when we were selling swag, and a reminder for all the folks out there that earlier on this year, I went and made a $800 plus donation in all of your names for the money that you put into our swag. I took that and took it down to help out. I got a phone call recently from the Winnipeg Humane Society talking about a couple of tough situations they had this year, and it sounded like this donation was very timely at the time. So all of you folks out there who chipped in, I see you every once in a while out there in your Sean's Headband T-shirts and things like that. You made a difference. So thank you so much again for jumping in on that. As good as this does look, it's not looking as good as Ken is right now out in Montreal with that great looking green grayish tie and the blue suit. Of course it looks great. Of course he knows how to match this stuff because of the boys of Vittorio Rossi tell him exactly how to do it. So if you need paint by numbers to look good, they can help you with that. Just head on down to Vittorio Rossi on Corden Avenue. Walk in, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will do you up right. Ken, what'd you see in that game?
Yeah, first of all, I see that I'm impressed by your ability to answer the bell today. I was not expecting to see you. Happy to see you, but
I didn't think it was happening. I
didn't even want to text you because I texted Laura because I didn't want to wake you up in case you were trying to get healthy under the blanket. But there you are, impressive. I'm happy to see you for sure. Not sure about the hair, but I'm not really one to comment on the hair. It's a little bit wild, but it's a little Friedman-esque. Let's go with, but I appreciate the effort nonetheless.
This is hot tub hair. This is Arctic Squaw's hot tub hair. I felt
Yes, well
even
done.
up in the hot tub.
We'll always feel better after that, no doubt. So, yeah, I mean, the first period was a little bit befuddling, Sean. To be honest, the Jets were. It's funny. I mean, we always talk about what can you glean from the morning skate, and today, Sean, Jets were buzzing in the morning skate, flying around. I was sitting with Double E, Eric Engels, and Paul Edmonds was behind us, and Mark Scheifele was scoring from everywhere. He's like, man, I bet he might get 2 tonight. And I might be calling his 30th. Well, he did call his 29th, but yeah, I mean, Jets were so flat coming out of the gate. And hey, Sean, we know that they're a high shot volume team, but these were not shots from everywhere. These were shots from quality areas, and Jets looked flat-footed for at least 10 minutes of the game. But then all of a sudden, there's Kyle Connor getting loose. There's a shot from the point from Dylan DeMello. Connor scores, and then almost immediately, I wouldn't say that it sucked the life out of the building, because the Habs still had a few good shifts after that. But man, second period was absolute domination stationed by the Jets. Montreal barely generating anything in that middle frame, Sean. I mean, it was a pretty darn impressive effort. Jets holding the Habs to 3 shots on goal in that second period, outshooting them 13-3. And honestly, the puck was, it's so funny, right? I mean, in the first period, in the first 10 minutes, it was one of the situations where the Zamboni wouldn't have had to flood the Montreal end. The Jets were barely spending any time there. But in the second period, they spent almost the entire period there. Their structure was very sound in the second. And yeah, I mean, I didn't like the breakdowns in the third, especially the one leading to the breakaway for Josh Anderson, who, again, Hellbuck will tell you that he forced him to miss on the backhand. But man, that is a absolute beautiful play to set him up. I mean, I think it was Hudson finding him through the middle of the neutral zone. If Anderson buries that, all of a sudden the place is rocking. It's a 1-goal game, and we got a frantic finish. But I love the way that Hellebuck played in the first period. He was absolutely dynamite. That game could have easily been 3-0. At the time, it was 1-0. Instead, the Jets found a way to get things calmed down. And then, Sean, after that, I mean, we know this is the case. I mean, we've watched enough of Montreal, both of us, to know that they are very fun to watch in the offensive zone, but in the defensive zone, the report card would read needs improvement when it comes to the defending. And again, that's a testament to how the Jets churn, right? That's the whole situation on the Connor goal. Jets have a really good offensive zone shift, cause a disruption, get a point shot. There it is. Kyle Connor's open. It's on the blade. It's in the back of the net. And all of a sudden, the Jets take a deep breath and sort of get back to playing their brand of hockey. So that was impressive enough. I love the way that Mark Scheifele handled this. I love the way that he handled it post game. I'm sure you could tell on the television, but to be in the building, I mean, this was merciless booing. This was every time he touched the puck, and as Daniel Rainbird from CP pointed out, sometimes even before the puck even got on his stick, they were anticipating the puck going to him and booing. But as we know, they don't boo nobodies. And Mark Scheifele did a nice job of delivering in the game itself. Excuse me. Glad I got the mute button before that. That would have been loud in the ears, I'm sure. But yeah, well, I mean, overall, okay. That's enough of the sneezing. Anyways, the Jets, full marks to them, and it's not their best game by any stretch. But as you mentioned, they were able to find their footing, and that's the key here. And again, we're not going to spend the the entire show dumping on the third pairing here, but obviously that Logan Stanley misses Slavkovsky on. He's not able to mark him in the D zone. And then, yeah, I mean, that's the only goal that's allowed. And, the breakaway also came with that third pairing on the ice. And, I mean, it's obvious that, Scott O'Neill and Dean Chenoth noticed also. I mean, it was 10 What do we got here? 10:40 for Logan Stanley, 10:01 for Hayden Fleury. So, I mean, when you see those numbers, you know that the coaching staff wasn't thrilled with the outing also. And, we'll see if that means anything happening on the third pairing. I mean, Scott Arniel was pretty clear for all the folks yelling in the chat room. I mean, with Adam Lowry out, Logan Stanley is probably going to be in the lineup for the foreseeable future, especially going into the game against Boston, where we know Logan Stanley openly invited Trent Frederick to drop the gloves with him the next time they play. So I can't imagine that, to make a point, Scott Arniel takes him out of the lineup. But I just don't see that happening. He did say on Sunday, Sean, after the game, you were there, he did say he wants to get Billy Hanela and Colin Miller into some action here. He doesn't want to leave them sitting for too long, but we'll see what happens in the next little bit here. But I mean, overall, Jets were pretty good. Again, I'll step back from the buffet, but I have plenty to say about David Gustafsson. I mean, what a great job he's doing right now. I mean, again, say whatever you want, but for a fourth line guy who had no points through 16 games, he's got a 4-game point streak, and he makes the play that turns the entire game around today, Sean. Flip in by Kyle Connor with about 6 seconds left. David Gustafsson beats Lane Hudson. Then he finishes his check on Caden Gooley. He also has the presence of mind to take the puck from Gooley, looks up, sees Kyle Connor unchecked in the high slot, and makes a perfect pass onto his tape. And again, on the tape, boom, it's in the back of the net. 1.5 seconds left. And that was an absolute backbreaker for the Canadiens. And it happens because, Gustafsson comes on the ice during a line change and hustles and gets the forecheck going. And that play is very, emblematic of what the Jets, for what you were talking about at the beginning. The Jets stick with what they're doing. They know what they do well. And when they're going, their forecheck is exceptional. And that is exhibit A in the video room. Scott Arniel will be showing that and saying, hey, this is what we do. You play to the buzzer, and sometimes you get a backbreaker buzzer beater that basically saps the life out of your opponent.
I want to dig into the idea of the Gus Bus and where he's going right now, because I actually find this kind of fascinating. Both he and Rasmus Kupari have really, really jumped to the forefront in the absence of Adam Lowry. The thing that I find interesting, and yes, Rasmus Kupari gets a goal tonight, an empty net goal, but David Gustafsson comes in. He's got a 4-game point streak. The fourth line maybe looks as good as we've seen it all year with David Gustafsson on it. Clearly, when Adam Lowry comes back, if they go back to that third line, which I believe they will, it's going to be a little bit too many cooks in the kitchen. This is strange, Ken, and I'm just going to say what I'm seeing right now, and you can respond to it. And I'm actually kind of fascinated because you've been a big pusher of both Rasmus Kupari, but also the driver of the Gus Bus. But as good as Rasmus Kupari has played and as dominant as he looks, I actually think that the fourth line has looked better with David Gustafsson on it. And the question is, when Lowry comes back, who's the odd man out in that situation? Because again, Rasmus Kupari has been so good, and he's just so fast, and he's such a buzzsaw. But I actually do think that the combination of Gustafsson, Iafallo, and Morgan Barron has had more chemistry and more offensive push when it's on the ice with Gustafsson.
Yeah, it's super interesting, Sean. And I honestly think, again, I like a lot of what Rasmus Kupari is doing for sure. He is using his speed. There are times when he still gets caught on the wrong side of the puck, not above, as Scott Arniel likes to say. Chasing a little bit in the defensive zone, where Gustafsson is a little bit more stable defensively. Obviously, he doesn't have the speed of Rasmus Kupari, but it's interesting. I think you could actually, I'm going to get to your question eventually here, but I want to start this way. I think you could make the case that you could flip-flop Kupari and Gustafsson right now based on how Gustafsson is playing, and it might give that checking line or checking plus line a little different look. I wouldn't have the same speed, but I think there's a little bit more offense with Niederreiter on that line. But I mean, I'm with you. I love the way that Morgan Barron is playing right now. I've been saying this for the last couple of weeks. That hit on Kirby Dach was right in front of me here at the Bell Center in terms of viewing. Man, what a hit! I love the way that he's skating. I love the way that that fourth line is churning down low and creating, offensive zone chances through the cycle. It's really impressive to see what they're doing right now. So, I mean, I know where you're coming from. I think you could easily make the case that Gustafsson has done enough to stay in the lineup, but at the same time, Sean, if they go out and get a 2C, then both of those guys are probably out of the lineup, right?
Yeah,
I mean, in the numbers game, Vlad Nemestikov's probably now the fourth line center, and it's Nemestikov, Iafallo, and Barron, and then Gustafsson and Kupari are, first man up front. So I think it's a great question. Now, the other thing I would say is that we know how much Scott O'Neill values faceoffs, and Rasmus Kupari is still, having a pretty good year in the dot as a right shot centerman. So today, Kupari 46% only today, but overall he's been pretty good. Gustafsson was 57, so now he's also making the case that you can lean on him for some draws. So I do think it's going to be an interesting discussion and debate. And here's the other part: if there's a winger that's not going, those guys can jump in and play on the wing also. And same with Vlad Nemestikov; he could move to the wing. And we know that. I mean, again, I saw Perfetti taking some draws today also. So Nemestikov is probably still not 100% with what he was dealing with earlier in the year. So we'll see that transpires. I mean, I don't have a definitive answer today, but man, David Gustafsson, the whole it's not how you start, it's how you finish. It's leaning Gustafsson right now, but at the same time, that element of like, what do we talk about last year in the playoffs? Jets weren't fast enough. Well, Rasmus Kupari is a guy that gives them more speed. So, they're going to have that as part of the consideration. But in terms of the more well-rounded game in a fourth line role, Gustafsson probably has a little bit of an edge, even though Kupari has played more games this year. But we saw it with Gustafsson again last year. He came in and did a nice job, and he scored a goal in the playoffs. So, we'll see what happens here. And again, I'm not trying to punt on the question. I just think that because there are 30 games left after today, I mean, literally, the Jets don't have a lot of battles in terms of the internal competition, even though there are guys in the running. That's one of the biggest battles we're going to see. And quite frankly, it might be for the 13th forward spot based on the health of the Jets and maybe what happens in the next, 5 weeks before the deadline.
The one thing that I get thinking about it especially when you start thinking about the depth is Iafallo is a guy who's going to be up this summer and could potentially leave as an unrestricted free agent. And if he did, I don't think that the Jets have anything to worry about, right? Like at this stage, it's to your point. If the Jets go pick up a 2C, which I believe they're going to, you're talking about both those guys potentially being out of the lineup, but both guys who can move over and play the wing. So clearly that's starting to not be a problem. But the other thing just about Kupari that I was kind of marveling at here today is when Kevin Cheveldayoff went out and made that Pierre-Luc Dubois trade. So you have to keep in mind the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade is made after the first year of the Rick Bonus introduced system. And if you want to know why the Jets seem to get stronger at that system, and again, so far this year, part of it is going to be that it was, the next year of playing that style of hockey, and the same thing this year is the next year after that. But it's very clear and very evident that Kevin Cheveldayoff, when he was making that trade for Pierre-Luc Dubois, he looked and he said, okay, well, is there a guy on this lineup that we may see something in here that we could actually find a player who would maybe produce as much as him, like a sneaky guy like that? Well, let's go and let's try and get that guy, right? So that guy's Gabe Vilardi. And then on top of that, you say, okay, well, how about we go and we get like another guy who's a little bit of a mix of both, has shown offense in the past, has played up and down lineups, is kind of another one of these jack of all trades, but is a really good defensive guy who we can put in the lineup, and that ends up being Alex Iafallo. And then they go out and they get, because you can see when they made the trade that brought Morgan Barron into the Winnipeg Jets, it was very much they're trying to find a specific kind of player, a player who's speedy and fast and can grind. And that's just exactly what Rasmus Kupari is in this situation. This just said to me, Kevin Cheveldayoff, and I bet you there were a lot of conversations with Rick Bowness and probably Scott Arniel, just about what they wanted their identity to be. And boy, oh boy, did Kevin Cheveldayoff ever do a good job of going out and finding guys that fit the identity of the Winnipeg Jets, the team that they were trying to build. You want to know how off the top of the program I was talking about the Jets and how they just seem to understand doing all the right things over and over again lead to something great. Well, that's because they went and they found a lot of players who kind of, it's their mantra to focus in and do the right thing over and over again. Kupari has been that. Morgan Barron has been that. Iafallo has been that. So when you take and you have the kind of right idea and the right mindset and the guys who fit in with that right mindset, I just wanted to make sure I gave credit where it's due. Kevin Cheveldayoff went and found players that really, really do fit this team, and it's one of the reasons this team's identity is just so solid.
And Sean, I would say it stretches back even further to the previous deadline when they went out and got Nemesnikov and Niederreiter, right? They were trying to change the complexion of their forward group, and those were two other guys that kind of got it started with responsible two-way play. We've said before, Nemesnikov is kind of, I wouldn't say sneaky dirty, but definitely has a physical element to his game, and Niederreiter's willingness to crash the net, that was sort of the start of it for me, and it definitely continued with that trade with the Kings. I think you're bang on, and maybe before, now that we're getting close to the bottom of the hour, we talked about Gustafsson. I think we're giving David Gustafsson, he got the pristine wake-up call with Adam Lowry leaving the lineup. He recognized the opportunity to not only, obviously to help his team, but to boost his own status in terms of getting himself back in the mix for consideration to be a full-time player. And now he's up to 20 games this year.
No doubt. That, of course, means it's time to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing wake-up call at 204-981-6289. He's the guy you want down at your place to look at any of your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. You can also call Pristine Roofing directly at 204-237-7663. When it comes to roofing, siding, and exteriors with Pristine, it's not a seasonal job. They can do it year-round. So if you need that kind of stuff, now's the time to call, get a hold of them. I'll also just end by saying, not end, but talking about Kevin Cheveldayoff, it's really paid off how well he has understood the DNA of this team, the makeup, the identity, by going out and getting those guys. It no doubt has paid off for the Winnipeg Jets. And if you are looking to pay off high interest credit cards or debt, we suggest you go talk to our friends at Cambridge Credit Union about their payoff loan. They can show you how taking out a loan to pay off your debt actually gets you debt free faster, and you can save thousands of dollars. Go to cambrian.mb.ca to book an appointment online. Ken, this is actually an interesting one. When it comes to the makeup of the Jets as they stand right now, and you'd said it to the point is it doesn't start with that trade. It goes back to the previous trade deadline when they go get Nemesnikov and they go get Niederreiter. Clearly, Nemesnikov was a guy that Rick Bowness would have been pulling for because he would have had him back in the day in Tampa Bay. How much do you think he played a role in identifying the kind of players, or maybe even the specific players, that Kevin Cheveldayoff ended up going out and going after?
Yeah, I mean, definitely we know Rick. He's not afraid to share his opinion, right? I mean, and that it shows. So, I mean, I think that there's definitely, there would have been some impact there. And in terms of bringing him back, I mean, Scott Arniel also had Nemesnikov when he was an associate coach under Alain Vigneault with the New York Rangers after he was traded there from the Tampa Bay Lightning in 2017-18. So that familiarity with both coaches has obviously been a factor in bringing him back, right? I mean, that's why he signed a 2-year deal. And Nemesnikov had that kind of nomadic lifestyle there for a few years where he was bouncing around a lot, but also a guy that was wanted at the deadlines for his versatility and adaptability and willingness to play wherever is asked of him throughout the lineup. So, definitely. I mean, definitely we're still seeing Rick Rick Bonus's fingerprints all over this team, and I do think that would have stretched into personnel. I mean, that was part of his job when he was brought in, to sort of identify players that need to stick around. And I mean, culture was a big part of it, but they also wanted players they thought that they could win with, and make them a harder team to play against, Sean. And again, that doesn't mean running teams through the end boards, but they've become a tougher team to play against after they've gotten rid of the snake charmer, and their ability to disrupt on the forecheck, very impressive. And that's something that's really upped their game as well. And I mentioned that because former Jet Matthew Perreault was in the building today. I didn't have a chance to see it, but Kevin Sawyer pointed out to me that Matty Perreault was in the building here, going to meet up with a couple of his former teammates after the game in the room.
Just wanted to say too, if we're talking about Scott Arniel and his impact as well, like AJF was a guy that he went after, same kind of deal. So you could tell that both those coaches went out and said, "Hey, I know this guy; he would be a good fit there." Arniel, of course, I know that guy. And that was one that they got by for a long time on the cheap, right? You claim that guy off waivers, and there you go. They've used him in a lot of different ways there. So it would be fascinating to have some conversations behind the scenes if they were willing to share and kind of see who brought which names to the table that everybody acted upon. Would definitely be very interesting to have seen them start looking at the LA Kings roster and how they landed on those three players. Because again, I take a look at what's happened with Gabe Vilardi on the top line for the Winnipeg Jets. They knew right out of the gate exactly how to use that player. Like, this isn't something that he kind of started out slow and got going. They put him right in a spot where he seemed to excel right off the bat. I'll say this, I've said it before, I'll say it again. The Winnipeg Jets knew more about Gabe Vilardi and how to get the best out of him, clearly, than the LA Kings did. It's something to take a look at another team's roster and see something in a player on someone else's roster that the team who has that player does not see. Let's get to the top line and just how kind of return to dominance they've been here. I don't think that, I shouldn't say return, because I don't know that they've really stepped away, but just tiny little area passes, you give them an inch, they take a mile. Is there any better line in the NHL right now at just you give them a flash of an opportunity and it's in the back of your net?
Yeah, it's just so impressive to me. I mean, again, it's not just the points, and I understand that people saying, "Oh, hey, you can't count those power play points." Well, I'm not great at math, but 9 and 5 is 14, and 5 of those points are on the power play. They've had 9 even strength points between the three of them in the last 2 games. So, again, not great at math, but 14 points is a pretty high number, right? So, anyways, are there times where they get hemmed in? Yes, that's true, but all lines get hemmed in. So, did I like their start in the first period? There were a couple shifts where they got caught kind of skating in quicksand, and you saw the guys they were going up against were getting some chances. But the Jets are so dangerous with that top line, and again, I say this all the time. Connor McDavid has flaws in his game defensively. Often offensive players do, but the effort of all 3 players on defense has really been elevated this year, and they're opportunistic, if you want to call them that, fine. The other side of that coin is that they don't need many chances to make them count. Sean, to your point, they get a good chance and it's in the back of the net, and it's been impressive to watch for sure. Again, I didn't particularly love the way that the second line went today. I know that was a pretty quiet-ish game for that trio. But overall, top line I thought was very solid. Yes, there were some defensive things they'd like to clean up, but I thought as the game went along in the second and third, I thought that line was very good. And obviously, when those guys are going, they are incredibly difficult to contain, right? I mean, and that's what you want from your top line. You want them to be dangerous, and I mean, most nights they have been dangerous. Yes, Kyle Connor came off a 4-game pointless drought. That's a guy that has 65 points this season, Sean. So I think you'll give him the benefit of the doubt that he had a few quiet games and probably at a time where he was feeling like almost like you did with the bug or virus or whatever else. So that is what consistency looks like. 29 goals through 52 games for both Scheifele and Connor, and 22 for Velarde. I mean, that's top notch stuff. You know, every team in the NHL would love that type of production from their top line, and not a lot of teams are getting it, quite frankly.
You know what I think when I think of that top line, and I go back to this, I'll bring it up because you brought up the term of them, the Jets trying to root out the snake charmer hockey.
Yeah.
Like that at one time, hey, if you've been watching this program for a number of years, you know how I felt when this program first started out about the Winnipeg Jets and that style of hockey. I was never a fan of that style of hockey. Yeah, when it works, it's super pretty. When the cards are on the table, it rarely ever did work. And the biggest offenders of the snake charmer brand of hockey were Mark Scheifele, Blake Wheeler, and Kyle Connor, right? And why did I not like it? To me, it was a kind of a brand of hockey where you just never got dirty, right? You stayed to the outside. You found ways to pass the puck around everybody. It worked really well against teams that weren't invested that much. It worked against lower end teams. And then, like I said, it would disappear when the cards were on the table. That line, I think, for so many years, and not that they weren't good at it, like that snake charmer brand of hockey, when it works, was pretty. So those three players were some of the prettiest players in the league when they were doing that. I mean, Kyle Connor, if we're talking about the last game, he scores an absolutely gorgeous goal, but think of the goals that they score on this night, right? Like the David Gustafson goal is just him going hard to the back, throwing it to the front, and Kyle Connor scoring. It's Gabe Velarde doing the same thing behind the net and just getting a quick area pass to Mark Scheifele and him popping it in the back of the net. It's not this eye-popping, wow, whoa kind of goal, right? It's these guys embracing the grind. And I think the Winnipeg Jets top line went from being in years past a line that refused to put themselves in discomfort. They wanted scoring to be comfortable. They wanted it to be easy. They wanted it to be slick. They wanted it to be pretty. They wanted to have separation from everybody around them. They just wanted to operate in a free-flowing, all-star manner of hockey. I thought the TSN broadcast did a good job tonight. I think it was in the second period breakdown of just showing like this one play where Gabe Velarde went down and he goes crashing into the boards to beat a guy to it, and that guy's grinding up against him. This is hard hockey, ladies and gentlemen, you know, where you've got a guy leaning on you and tiring you out and you're fighting for the puck along the boards, and then he moves it and in goes Mark Scheifele and he's doing the same thing with his guy. I take a look at this now and it reminds me of like, you know, pigs rooting in the mud. Like they love getting dirty now. Mark Scheifele loves getting dirty. He loves going down in the corner, grinding with players, daring them to take the puck off of him. Gabe Velarde's the same way. Kyle Connor does it quite often. It's not very often that he doesn't come out with the puck on the boards when he gets there first before another player. But what we see from this line is a group that is entirely invested now in being comfortable in discomfort. I think that is a huge sign going into the playoffs. That's the kind of hockey that they'll have to play if they're going to have success in the playoffs. And I just think like the way that they now, hey, they're still able to score that other way. So if you are going to leave it open for odd man rushes and things like that, or if you're not going to be prepared for Kyle Connor coming down with speed, they can still do that to you, and they will do that to you. But what they don't do, which I think they did in years past, and what I think I'm seeing less this year, Ken, is what they don't do is fall in love with that kind of style of hockey and then quit doing the hard stuff. and say, you know what, let's just go back to that. I thought they did it a little bit before Christmas around that road trip where they went and didn't play a very good game, but won against San Jose and then went the next game and lost to Anaheim. I thought they started doing that. I thought Scott Arniel did a really good job of rooting that out. Now they're back to just being that team that does the right thing over and over again. I think that team or that line especially understands it's who they're supposed to be now, and they're saying we can be those guys from before. But I think that line understands now that that's not always going to be there, so they needed to start relying on other ways to score, and they've found a way to consistently within a game be able to score the fancy pretty goals, but also the grinded out, outwork your opposition goals.
No, bang on. I think you've said it perfectly here, and that's part of the reason why they've been as successful as they have been, and the lulls have been so like minute, quite frankly. The consistency has been absolutely excellent for those guys, and that's one of the reasons why the Jets are where they are.
Hey, why don't you give Sweet Lou a shout out?
For sure. For folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met, buying, selling, curious what the house in the corner may be selling for, contact our main man, Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU at LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of this community.
I wanted to check in quick on something because it's I know a couple games ago we were talking about Cole Perfetti and it being the bust.
Sure.
Now I know the numbers don't say that. I'm not willing to say right away, whatever. But the concern about Cole Perfetti is he pops up and shows up on the score sheet in a big way, and then goes to sleep. So it's a couple straight games now that he hasn't had a point. Are you seeing the response that you've wanted to see from Cole Perfetti since he had that game?
Well, I mean, he did get an assist on the empty netter, Sean. I mean, secondary assist, obviously, we know that. Quiet-ish game offensively, 1 shot on net, 5 attempts, 2 hits again, though, 1 block shot. I don't mind Perfetti's game. I mean, I think there's room for improvement for sure. But I don't see it as a concern quite yet. But again, I do think that it's something that the Jets are going to want to see. They're going to want to see more in the next 5 weeks if they want to, entrust him with the top 6 job. Come playoff time, and Cole is making some strides in his all-around game. Still, I do believe that. But again, I did not feel a lot of cohesion again for that line today in terms of the Nemesnikov, Ehlers, and Perfetti. But again, there's no easy juggle here in terms of what who's going to get whom going, and I think it looks pretty clear right now. And until the Jets make a trade, Scott Arniel wants those guys to get it sorted out together. I mean, he believes that they can get it done. They had some stretches where they have had success, but for the most part, they have not been maybe as consistent as a coaching staff would like for a second line team that wants to go on a deep playoff run, right? So I do think that, again, strides being taken, yes, but more to give also, yes, in that situation. And quite frankly, they'll need more, Sean, is how I view it. And I think Cole thinks he can give more.
Yeah, I would think so as well. Kenny's water bottle says Lou worn the headband that Renny was a fixer-upper. That's as close as I need to get a call for the headband on this night to cover up this.
That's wake up territory, buddy. That's wake up territory.
Ken called me on earlier on, so you know what that means. It's time to make this Sean's headband version of the Kenny and Renny show. Here we go. Ken, any news that you're hearing down there since you've been on the road about some of the potential players that are going to be available? Thought this was pretty interesting. A player that you and I have talked about for a long time that we really like his playoff pedigree. We like his compete. We think he'd fit just right in with the way the Winnipeg Jets style of play is. The idea that Yanni Gord may
Right.
become available. What had you thought when you heard that?
Oh, massive. I think, again, and the beauty of Gord is that he would give the Jets so much variety. It's a full variety pack, right? You could play him easily in the middle six, and you can play him easily on the checking line. And then you may want to try to see more of Lowry and Ehlers. And I'm not just saying this because it's something that I want to see more of. But if you move Lowry up, now you have Yanni Gord to play with Appleton and Niederreiter. Well, there's, again, I think that that's also a line that can do a lot of damage at both ends of the ice. So, and again, if you prefer to try Gord up with Ehlers to see if that's the magic potion, that's an option also. And, you know, Yanni Gord sometimes plays on the fourth line with his own team. So he's a guy that is comfortable wherever you need him. I would love Gord uh, as an option for the Jets because of the playoff pedigree that you mentioned. I mean, this guy's an absolute dog on a bone when it comes to forechecking. He's a great penalty killer. He has enough skill in his game that, again, this is not a knock on Nemesnikov because I value the way that he plays. But I mean, Yanni Gord's probably a guy that you could play ahead of Nemesnikov on the power play on the second unit, right? So if that's a role that the Jets would like to use him at also. And this is the other part. High motor guy, right? This guy that got some speed, mixes it up. Again, John Cooper loved Yanni Gord. I know that he didn't really want him to be gone, but that's just the way that goes in hockey sometimes. And I do think that Gord would be a really good fit for the Winnipeg Jets. He's not the splashy name that some people may be looking for, but he would be a guy that I think makes a lot of sense on that front. And Waiter's saying apparently Pittsburgh only wants a second for Marcus Pettersson. Sean, I've been doing a lot of digging on Pettersson because, I mean, in my viewings, he's a guy that I think is a guy who could help the Jets, but I wasn't sure. I haven't seen him enough in terms of how physical his game is in terms of the live viewings. But in talking to several scouts who have been around Pettersson or have been around people who have coached Pettersson, they absolutely love the player. I think he's 6'4", so mobile, and he is a guy who plays a really physical style of game, like not beat you over the head with a hammer type of player, but really physical and does a really good job. So, I think that would be something that would make some sense. Now, again, price tag, are the Jets comfortable uh, shipping a second if that's what the actual price is? If maybe that's just the asking price, I'm not sure. I'd be curious about what the price tag is for Gord. We know that Seattle is kind of a team in transition, but they're not going to tear it down. They signed Chandler Stevenson and Brandon Montour to big ticket deals. So they're going to want to flip this around fast. So they're not going to want to be looking for only futures. They want guys that can help them right now also. So that is kind of very curious, and we'll see what happens. And I'm also incredibly curious, Sean. Again, the Jets are about to, Sarah Valley mentioned Brock Nelson. Yes, I mean, so Sean, how do you see? And again, we're not going to spend much time on this. I'm only mentioning it because it could impact the Jets. The Minnesota Wild are another team that has been connected to Brock Nelson. Does the Kaprizov pending surgery and being out for 4 weeks, do you think that could take them out of the Nelson sweepstakes, or would that give them a reason to go out and get him earlier, knowing that they're going to have to be without Kaprizov and his scoring for a month's time at a time where their wheels are spinning a little bit?
If it's one of the two, I think they have to go out and they have to go get him earlier
Right.
because they don't save any money towards the cap by Kaprizov being out, because Kaprizov is set to return before the end of the
Yep.
season, which means they don't bank money to use. So this is one of those things where if you are, to your point, you thought that the Colorado Avalanche were going to find a way to jump above them in the standings. I'm not so sure. Colorado
I said that
seems to
before
be
the
a
trade.
lot.
I
Yeah.
apologize about that.
Well,
So,
listen, I'll
I mean,
say
it
this
might back it
though.
off yet, but I'm not as certain.
Natchez has 4 points in 3 games. He had 2 points again tonight. He had 2 points the other night. Like, that one player is not the problem. It's deeper than that
Oh
for
yeah,
the Colorado Avalanche. They've gone back to allowing far too many goals. But regardless, if you're taking a look at Minnesota, I don't know. Maybe there's not the sense of urgency because they're okay with where they are in the playoffs at this point. They're a team that I've thought makes sense to add if they can make it work financially because they need more than they have. I think you notice that every time. They're a hard team. I've said this before. They can grind like the Jets, but they can't score like the Jets. Nelson is actually the perfect guy, I think, for both teams. Like, as good as
right,
Yanni Gord is, Nelson's a better scorer, and he's
right.
bigger, and he can grind, right? And while he hasn't won a cup the way Yanni Gord has, he's gone to a couple conference finals back to back, knows how to kind of compete in those situations. So I actually think he's the player. If I were the Jets, he would be higher on my wish list than even Yanni Gord, because I think as good as Yanni Gord is, and as much as I appreciate him, I think he's closer to a 3C than he is a 2C, and the Jets don't have that. The 2C is more what they need.
Yep,
Brock Nelson fits that role, but
for
he's
sure.
kind of the perfect player for both those teams, because if you are the Minnesota Wild and you can grind the way that you do and you can defend the way that you do, and you just need to score more with the kind of guy who can just go to the front of the net and create a lot of chaos, he's a guy I actually think could really elevate both teams. And I would think if you are the Minnesota Wild, who knows, could end up playing the Jets in the first round the way things are going right
Yep,
now, I would be almost interested in taking that player just so you could get them off the board, and the Jets couldn't get that player because other than if Taves isn't coming back, which Pierre
right.
LeBrun had suggested, he will not do until next season. I'm taking a look around. I know there's talks of Granlund. I don't think Granlund is the answer for that second line for the Winnipeg Jets. You and I have had a conversation
Yep,
on this show about it. I'm not a big fan of it. Nelson is the guy that I really do think, if the Jets are going for anyone with Taves out of there, I think the Jets should be going all in on getting Nelson for that spot, because if you have Nelson on a line and you've got Ehlers on a line, I think that just opens up so much ice that he's the kind of player that just may be able to unlock all the things about Cole Perfetti that so much of our fan base has faith in that player. I know there's a lot of people in the conversation in our chat room and on Twitter have been losing faith in Cole Perfetti, but what have we always said about him? When he's got space to operate, he can be dangerous. We'd like to see him going to the net more often. It becomes a lot easier to go to the net when Brock Nelson goes there
for
first,
sure.
because he's such a beast that he's going to open up. You just have to, ride in his wake, right? And you can get there, but also that same wake is going to open up space in behind there where he can operate from distance if he wants to. So I really do think that Brock Nelson should be number one on the Winnipeg Jets list, unless they're going to go like crazy. We've talked about Barzal
Yep.
this show before. I think that would be the kind of thing that would solve the Jets' problems for years. I just don't know that player is going to be available. I think Nelson will be.
Sure, and some people have asked, obviously the team that is creating the most headlines around the NHL is the Vancouver Canucks, who, if depending on your viewpoint, maybe in the market to be moving to top one or two centermen, but the problem there is that they want one in return. So the Jets are not in a position. And again, I don't see JT Miller wanting to play in Canada, nor do I think the Jets would be. I mean, again, JT Miller plays hard. I respect his game. But that abrasive kind of personality, I'm not so certain that the Jets would be, wanting to see if that works. And again, I don't think that Miller would be interested in playing in Canada, though there have been some whispers about maybe the Ottawa Senators maybe being interested there as well. But Pettersson, I mean, again, Sean, I think both of us had kind of heard that the Jets maybe had checked in on Pettersson, but I don't know how serious things got. And again, I have no idea how A, they make the money work, or B, they don't have a top 1 or 2 C to move in a deal for him. So I don't see that being a possibility either. So, see what happens. And, Vinny Trocheck's a guy we've talked about before, Sean. I mean, I think he would fit the Jets in a lot of ways, but I don't see the Rangers throwing up a white flag. And again, I think that Trocheck has some protection. So
they're
I don't
trying to do the same thing. That they're trying to do the same thing that Vancouver is, which is why the Jets. We've talked about this before. The Jets aren't in on these players because the Jets' only option is to trade futures for now. These are teams that are trying to trade their now for someone else's now. They're trying to make hockey trades. They're trying to do similar to what the Colorado
Avalanche. Yeah, I got you, buddy. So I mean, all to say that I'm with you. I mean, I think that like outside of going out to get the next Paul Stastny, I think that Brock Nelson is a great fit because you talked about what he could unlock for Perfetti. I think what he could unlock for Ehlers would also be equally or probably even more impressive, given how dynamic Ehlers is already. Even though we know that Cole has a lot of potential, I think that Nelson's big body and ability to both score and pass would really help Nikolai Ehlers in the way that Paul Stastny also helped Nikolai Ehlers after he was acquired. I think it's very similar. Again, I'm not saying they're similar players. I'm saying that they're both smart players who make their wingers more dangerous because of the double threat.
I'll one up that, and I'll go to Gabe Vilardi and Nikolai Ehlers, who work so well together because Gabe Vilardi is a big body that goes to the front of the net, can score, and has hands. That's what Nelson is. Probably a little more brutal and a little more strong in front of the net. But what have I said before? Why did Lowry work with Ehlers? Straight lines. Ehlers works with straight line players who go to the front of the net. Brock Nelson is exactly that. There's no question in my mind that Nick Ehlers and Brock Nelson would work well together. Okay, we got to get moving here. Ken, Johnson Group got you covered. Play of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, we're kind of, I mean, again, we're not in agreement on this one, but I know that even if there was a fan shot by Pizzetta, I think that Hayden Fleury did enough to disrupt the play, whether he got the puck or his stick or whatever else. I don't think it was a full fan, so I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, even if he forces him to kind of rush the shot, which may have made him whiff on the puck anyway. I think he tied up enough of his stick in that desperation play after the rebound from Gallagher's shot that that was kind of, it'll be good enough for me in the we've got you covered play of the game by the OGs here.
I don't
have a better one.
I don't have one, so we'll go with that. But I just think that Pizzetta whiffed on that. If you look at the replay, I mean, sure, maybe we can say that he rushed him on the play, and a guy like Pizzetta is, one of those kind of players who probably panicked. It just looked to me like he fanned on the shot. Regardless, that's our Johnson Group got you covered play of the game. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. Ken, your keg save of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, there were a multitude of options in the first period when Hellebuck was under duress, including the one that was absolutely ripped off of his face mask. But I'm going to go with and I think a lot of people in the chat room here, Nick Suzuki at about 7 minutes and change into the third period, 7:37, I think, to be precise. That's high end. And again, I was tempted on the Anderson play, but you can't give the save of the game on a backhand that was wide, even though Hellebuck kind of probably forced him to go wider than he wanted to. But I'm going to go with the Suzuki save by Hellebuck as my keg save of the game.
big and boring positional save, but more than that, he comes out a crazy amount to challenge. But this too is to me, an understanding of a player and the team, or a goaltender and the team he plays on. There's chaos all around him. You do not make that play come out to challenge as far as he does if you don't have complete and total faith that the defenders around you have all their guys tied up. Once again, Connor Hellebuck is lucky to be playing in the system he's playing in. As good as he looks this year, the Winnipeg Jets and his teammates are a massive part of it. But I do agree that is the keg save of the game. It doesn't matter what I think or Ken thinks, though. Matters what you think. Share with us your hashtag the keg save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. And the winner from our last show, that would be Jeff Kabilis. Jeff Kabilis, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email, and I will have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. And that brings us to our Trans-Canada Brewing Company, TCB Lamplighter of the game. What do you got, Ken?
Yeah, it's got to be the backbreaker, buzzer beater, all of the things. Dump in by Kyle Connor, retrieval and forecheck and steal by David Gustafson, who makes a smart pass out to Kyle Connor, who rips home his 29th to tie Mark Scheifele for the team lead. All 3 Jets goals were impressive, as was the goal by the Canadiens, but for me, there's only one choice here, and that is the Kyle Connor second and final goal of the game. The insurance marker, but it was the backbreaker in this one.
Yeah, repeatable goal. Everything they do there is right. Their compete is right. Their playing to the bell is right. Their attention to details is right. That is just an absolutely great play. And like Ken's, TCB Lamplighter of the game. But it doesn't matter what the both of us think. Matters what you think. Share with us your TCB Lamplighter of the game. You're automatically entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at Trans-Canada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny to gift you your very own 8-pack, go get one yourselves down at 1290 Keniston. Join them in their tap room. They've got a lot of great beers there. Someone was talking in the chat room. They went to pick up theirs and checked it out. Just an absolutely wonderful atmosphere, great food, and by my measure, the best pizza in town. That brings us to our Lamplighter winner from our last show, and that would be Dallas Pauls. Dallas, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. I will send you a voucher for a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at Trans-Canada Brewing Company. It is the nectar of the gods. Ken, anything to say before we go?
No, I mean, interesting. I mean, Jets quietly up to 35 wins this year. Impressive number, no doubt about it. 4 games in a row with a victory. Big test ahead. I think it'll be a spicy game. Boston has been a little bit of a team in shambles this year at times. Made a coaching change already. They got smoked by the Buffalo Sabres today. They have some big decisions on the horizon to make. I think that they will be hungry for this game, but in some ways they're a team that's a little bit wounded, Sean. So, I mean, you don't know what you're going to get exactly from them right now, but what we've also seen, and we should point out, last year the Jets smoked the Bruins in the last game before the break and went up to Boston, and they did not, they had it handed to them as the Bruins evened the season series. So I'm sure they're going to remember the 8-1 game. I'm sure the Jets are going to remember what happened to David Gustafson, and it should provide a little extra spice for 2 teams that only see each other twice a year. So I think it's going to be a fascinating game. And then too, I mean, Jets don't want to look ahead till Saturday's game, but you and I sure will, and I can't wait for the game in Washington between the Capitals and the Jets. But again, we're not looking ahead; we're looking at the game in front of us, and that should be a great one as well.
Yeah,
keep getting better, and I'll see you on Friday.
To the point of that game on Saturday when the Jets, what's looking like it's going to be a first place showdown. C. Jury said, who does the animations for the Sean's headband? They deserve a shout out. That would be Niels Brits, who does animations here in town, who out of a pitch that I started, did the Hey Berkey videos. If you've ever heard of those before, or if you haven't, you should go check them out on YouTube. They're great stories told by Brian Burke of his time in the league, animated by Niels. And we are looking to, very probably are going to debut something very special that we're only doing for the Winnipeg Jets right now anyway. Animation's done that Niels and myself have been working on.
Collaboration.
Debut it. Collaboration, trying to launch it. And a little hint, it's about Gabe Velarde, but trying to launch it on Saturday. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you tune into Hockey Night in Canada for that. But before that, Winnipeg Jets and the Boston Bruins, that's the next one. I agree with Enor Tapp, who says that Boston is ripe for the picking. I think that's a team in shambles right now. And I think one of the things about the Jets and playing this style where they just do the right thing over and over and over again, I think that exposes teams that are in shambles, so which is where I believe the Boston Bruins are at right now. I don't think they make the playoffs this upcoming year. Anyways, that's it for all of us. Thank you so much, Ken. Great job as usual, and thanks for sticking around. I know it's later there. Thank you to the chat room who always bring it, and they for sure brought it here tonight. I would say to you, though, before we go, as I always do, if you appreciate the conversations happening in this space, I would implore you to appreciate the contributions by our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space for us. That's Vittorio Rossi, Cambrian Credit Union, Pristine Roofing, Sweet Lou Ferlin, the Kenny and Renny OGs and the Johnson Group, TransCanada Brewing Company, and of course the Keg. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you. We appreciate you stopping by. Hopefully you stop by again and we do it all over again after the Jets play the Boston Bruins. Bye-bye, folks.